You're about to see how 31 pirate boats made the biggest mistake of their lives. They thought a U.S. supply vessel was an easy prize. But inside its steel bulkheads was something no Navy could afford to lose: classified fuel compounds that kept fighter jets in the sky. But what happens when pirates unknowingly strike what the Pentagon calls the lifeblood of a carrier group? The answer isn't a ransom negotiation. It's fighter jets, drones, and SEALs arriving like a thunderstorm. What followed changed Somali waters forever. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How could 31 small boats take on the lifeline of an American carrier strike group? The answer begins with a ship that didn't look like war at all. The supply vessel moved slow, painted in dull civilian gray, bulk cargo hatches along its deck, and only 2 small caliber mounts visible from the outside. To the untrained eye, it was nothing more than a merchant freighter creeping along a busy shipping lane. But hidden inside were sealed tanks filled with specialized aviation fuel, oxygen compounds, hydraulic fluids, and high-energy propellants. Every gallon mattered for the jets, missiles, and reconnaissance planes that circled above a strike group. Without this vessel, the heart of America's sea dominance would begin to slow. The pirates knew that appearance was everything. They had scouted for weeks, watching this specific ship move across the route. 31 skiffs were coordinated with handheld radios, engines tuned for maximum speed, each one loaded with armed men who thought of themselves not as desperate criminals, but as fighters striking an undefended treasure. More than 250 men spread across the swarm, each trained in their own version of maritime raiding. Some carried RPG-7s slung across their backs. Others had DSHK, heavy machine guns mounted awkwardly on tripods welded into place at the bow. Wood ladders scraped with salt water lay ready to be hoisted once they closed in on the hull. The attack started at dawn. Engines roared as wakes stretched long white trails behind them. At 40 knots, the first cluster of 5 boats pressed close to port side and opened fire. Bursts sparked off metal plating, leaving black scars across insulation foam and steel seams. RPG rounds punched fragments from the outer rails and forced crewmen to duck as alarms triggered throughout the bridge. Within minutes, tracer fire stitched across the deckhouse windows and antenna housings. For a crew of a few dozen sailors, the assault felt less like a raid and more like a firing squad closing in. Why this mattered extended far beyond the horizon. Each drum of aviation fuel below deck equaled hours of flight time for F-35 strike missions. Composite oxidizers aboard determined the reach of missiles already waiting on standby. The pirates believed they were sighting an easy ransom platform. Instead, they had unknowingly made an attack that linked directly to American nuclear deterrence and carrier strike readiness. In effect, they had pointed machine guns not at a cargo ship, but at an entire naval formation's beating heart. 31 boats against 1 vessel was mathematics designed to overwhelm. With no escort frigate visible, the pirates had every reason to think they could capture the ship within half an hour. The captain stared across a radar that showed each contact moving closer in a tightening circle. Flares were useless. The pirates expected them. Radio calls would be jammed or intercepted. Instead, he triggered a quiet system hidden beneath the main console, an encrypted distress alert that transmitted silently by satellite. Within seconds, the situation stopped being logged as piracy and became relayed through channels reserved for active combat response. At the Pentagon, analysts recognized that what was happening could not be filed as criminal activity. It was a direct strike on naval infrastructure. Classification shifted in less than 6 minutes. The order delivered was concise. Rear Admiral Sloan sent back instructions commanding no negotiations, no extended surveillance. Immediate strike preparation would begin, assets already in range. What 250 pirates thought was just intimidation had now drawn the weight of the American military's full-spectrum response. But what kind of force could stop so many armed men spread across dozens of vessels in minutes? What happens when an enemy expects ransom but meets precision airstrikes and elite boarding teams instead? The pirates swarming the American supply ship thought they had control. They fired in bursts, circled close, and prepared ladders as if victory was minutes away. What they did not count on was the USS Liberty, already within response range, launching a coordinated strike package built for war. In less than 6 minutes, helicopters lifted from the carrier deck, drones spun into the air from automated catapults. F-18 jets were hooked into catapults on standby, and Navy SEAL platoons boarded Blackhawks with weapons ready. The entire machine of response was triggered not in hours, but in moments, carrying out orders that had no space for hesitation. The pirates kept firing, convinced that even if a rescue force was on the way, it would need hours to arrive. That confidence worked against them. The first wave did not come with men in boats. It came from the sky, invisible until the engines whispered overhead. MQ-25. Stingray drones flew at medium altitude, marking every vessel with infrared identifiers. Surveillance cameras locked onto the formation, tagging individual skiffs, carrying heavy guns. 3 escort boats had already moved wider, circling to cut off any approach. What the pirates thought was clever flanking was spotted within seconds. Coordinates fed directly into a joint targeting grid, monitored by operators on board Liberty. The order was given. Microbombs released from the drones fell in sequence, each smaller than a backpack, each fused with precision charge. 4 blasts erupted in under 12 seconds, lifting plumes of water and metal over the horizon. Entire skiffs split in half, throwing survivors into the sea. 5 men clung desperately to floating debris. Radio chatter among the pirates went from taunts to panic in that short interval. For every man cheering a ransom payout, another now screamed for backup that was never going to come. Then, Wave 2 arrived. 2 F-18 Hornets tore low across the waterline, afterburners streaking trails. Their target was not the supply vessel, but the sandbagged firing points hastily rigged on pirate decks. Short bursts of 20mm cannon fire tore through the makeshift bunkers, cutting down positions that just seconds before had been laying streams of tracer fire. Ammunition cooked off in bursts of flame as crews abandoned burning boats, diving overboard to escape the heat. What seemed like a secure kill box for the pirates collapsed almost instantly, leaving fragments of wood and smoke across the water. But it wasn't just airstrikes. Liberty's helicopters now hovered above the supply ship itself, ropes sliding down, SEAL commandos descending in full combat gear. They breached from multiple points at once, infrared scopes guiding their movement through corridors clouded with smoke and alarm lights. Even in the chaos, they advanced one room at a time, synchronized through encrypted comms, making sure every passage was clear. Pirates who had made it aboard were cornered quickly, stunned to find professional teams moving with mechanical precision rather than panicked civilian crew. In less than 20 minutes, every hostage on the vessel was safe. The tally was exact, 0 American losses. With the immediate fight over, drones continued sweeping wider arcs. Their cameras tracked stragglers retreating to the coast. 7 nautical miles inland, thermal outlines revealed a distant compound, busy with vehicle movement, storage huts, and armed guards rushing to prepare. It wasn't just a safe house. It was a regional command hub for piracy, feeding the very operation that launched 31 boats. What happened at sea was no longer the only battle. A new target had been revealed, and an inland strike was already being planned to erase more than a base. It would wipe out a regional power in piracy itself. Within hours, they lost more than skiffs. Their inland command center was identified, targeted, and erased with the same precision. The warning was clear, written into the coastline itself. Attack the supply chain, and the response is overwhelming, rapid, and final. Logistics equals power.